Hi guys, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Nuggets News. Today we welcome a very special guest, one of my investing heroes, and that is Robert Kiyosaki. So I've been following him for over 10 years, which is showing my age a little bit. And Robert's been a big advocate for gold and silver, and recently he's really jumped on Bitcoin as well. So sound money, we're going to talk about property today, all his thoughts on what is going on. But I guess, Robert, a good place to start might be your best-selling book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and I'm going to link to all that in the description down below, guys. But your message that you're telling people about the two influences you had in your life and how maybe people are sort of indoctrinated and they come out of school thinking you've got to do this, that, or the other, and you know that life message that really shaped your journey. I'd love for you to give people that, I guess, quick rundown of your belief system and that best-selling book.
Well, Rich Dad Poor Dad is a true story of my two fathers. My real dad was the head of education for the state of Hawaii, PhD, and he always hid behind his diploma, and diplomas, you can't take a diploma to a pawn shop. Nobody will pay you anything for it. And then my rich dad, he had a financial statement. He didn't go to school. And a financial statement either shows how smart you are, how stupid you are with your money. So that's where the story begins. So at the age of 9, I started understanding income, expense, assets, liabilities, statements of cash flow. Well, I learned that by playing Monopoly, 4 green houses, 1 red hotel. So today, as an old man, I own lots of green houses, lots of real estate, lots of gold, silver, and Bitcoin. I stay out of the dollar. And, it broke my heart when I first went to Aussie in '76 to play rugby union. And I saw your dollar go from about 80 cents to 55 cents in one drop. And that's because, China is screwed up. They're in serious trouble. And you guys export to China, and then we finance you out of the U.S. So that's why, it's a terrible situation Aussie's in right now.
Yeah, I definitely want to get to that later as well. And a similar thing has happened recently, I guess, with the Aussie dollar going from 70s to 55 cents again. So next thing I want to ask you about was the difference between good versus bad debt. Because obviously the world has this, $300 trillion is the latest figure they're throwing around. Australia has record household debt. Our government debt isn't too bad, actually, one of the few countries. But what are your thoughts on the household level for people to put that money to work, the difference between good debt and bad debt that people get confused?
Well, good debt makes you richer. So when the stock market, when the whole economy came down in 2008, well, the price of real estate dropped, but so did the price of money. Interest rates dropped. So by 2009, I was with a financial statement, and my partners and I are able to borrow $300 million. And with that, because interest rates were really low and real estate prices were low, we thought we died and went to heaven. So we made more money in that crash than ever in my whole life. And now this crash, we're going to make even more money. So crashes are really good, but if you're an idiot, you're in trouble today. And without financial education, there's billions of people in trouble.
Yeah.
So that's why Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Yeah, so what's the preparation? It's great to be able to pick up those assets on the cheap during a crash, and that's when fortunes are made, as you say. What's the preparation and applying all that financial savviness to get prepared to have money and liquidity for the crash versus someone that's sitting there just owning stocks and this typical portfolio? Obviously, for them, a crash isn't fantastic.
Well, if you're really the village idiot, buy stocks, bonds, mutual funds, and ETFs. Have a superannuation. And that's best for the average guy. Unfortunately, as you know, I don't know if there's a book here I just came out with. It's called Who Stole My Pension? And it's about America's number one export are toxic assets. And your supers are filled with toxic assets sold to you by America. I think that's kind of funny, personally. And then you export to China, and they're in serious trouble. So, it's really a bad time if you really haven't invested in any kind of financial education. But that's why I said my poor dad, he hid behind his diploma, his PhD from Stanford, University of Chicago, Northwestern. but you take your PhD to a pawn shop, they won't give you any money for it. Isn't that funny? I think that's hysterical.
Another one of the favorite books of mine is your mate Harry Dent. I think you guys are coming to Australia soon and doing another tour. So he was another one that sort of spoke about the demographics and deflation and everything. But if you're not a fan of the US dollar, what are you sitting in to have liquidity to buy these assets once we do have a crash? Or is it just a temporary sitting in the dollar, you don't like it longer term?
Well, I don't need money because I use debt. See, what the central bank system, which the Fed is, the Royal Bank of Australia, Bank of China, the Bank of Japan, all they do is print their own money. So as a young man, I just learned to print my own money. So I use debt, and I use debt, and then when the money is thrown off as cash flow,
okay,
I don't save money because I don't need money because I can use debt, and then I buy gold, silver, and now Bitcoin. After I understood Bitcoin, so. And the reason for that is I don't trust the central banks. I wouldn't trust your Royal Bank of Australia. The Commonwealth Bank, man, you guys are in serious trouble.
Yes.
America has to give you a swap line because you owe so much money in dollars, and the Aussie keeps following. So you guys, your Commonwealth Bank and the other banks keep borrowing money from the U.S. via swaps. And the average Aussie has no idea what a swap is.
Exactly. Yeah, I do want to get into that in just a sec. I guess the thing that I was getting at is you're saying that you're not sitting in dollars and you're making debt work for you. So the assets that you're mainly in are your property, your gold and silver, and that's what you're borrowing against during the crash to get more property and acquire more assets. Is that what you're sort of saying? That's how you would play it, or how would you play it?
I don't play it, my books are assets. I write, I don't make much money. I probably make $500,000 a month off of book sales. So that's $6 million a year. So I don't need money. I got all the extra cash coming in.
Okay.
So I get my cash from assets and I sell my cash flow games and make even more money. So I'm in the intellectual property business, IP, and then I lever up with debt to buy real estate, and the cash flow from real estate is I buy gold, silver, and Bitcoin.
Yeah.
I just mimic the Federal Reserve Bank.
Yeah. Okay. I think I've understood you now. So you're more being more aggressive and levering up more when there's opportunity there to buy assets on the cheap. I think that's kind of the takeaway message there.
No, I don't buy them because they're cheap. I buy them because they're valuable. I don't. I've owned pretty in Sydney, and the mistake I made was that I sold it. I bought a property in Rushcutters Bay and one in King's Cross, but the prices went up so fast that it almost tripled in less than a year. So I sold, and I wish I hadn't sold. But as you know now, property in Sydney is crashing. And that's because you got too much debt, the Aussie is weak, and your banking system is corrupt.
Yeah.
All banking systems are corrupt, anyway.
Yeah.
And it's because the Federal Reserve Bank of America is not really federal, it's not really a bank, and it's owned by the Rothschild family. So they don't tell you that. Same as your bank is owned by the Rothschild family.
Let's dive into the Aussie situation. We did make a documentary about this, and I think it's one of the economies that is just so reliant on few things. So the exporting to China, as you said, all the resources that China took most of, and that's probably not going to ever have that demand again. We push up housing prices. All the mortgages are with the banks, and then it all goes into our super funds. So I completely agree with you on that. Why?
Well, let me tell you something even more stupid about Aussie, because I love you guys. I've been going to Aussie since '76. I used to go 4 times a year. That's why this travel thing is kind of bugging me, because I should have been there with Harry Dent.
Yeah.
But I tell you what else is really silly is your real estate agents tell people to negative gear. Are you kidding me? And you guys wonder why your property markets are so messed up, because you have these idiot property, you call them realtors.
Yeah.
And they tell you it's smart to lose money because you'll get a tax break for it. Are you nuts? I mean, I love you guys, but even Americans aren't that stupid. They know negative gearing is stupid.
Yeah, I really want you to explain this clearly for people, because obviously you're an advocate of buying up assets that you say were valuable before, and property, and getting the cash flow and making things work for you. But what is the big difference to what we're doing in Australia, where you're negatively gearing and losing money and just praying? Yeah.
Because you're stupid real estate agents, and there's a lot of them. In the U.S. too. I don't like stockbrokers, and I don't like real estate agents. Most of them are idiots. But anyway, I've been going to Aussie since '76, and your real estate agents were telling me, "Oh, this is a good property because you'll lose money." I went, "That's negative gear."
Yeah.
And I said, "Why is that smart?" It's because you get a tax break for losing money. I'm going, you got to be crazy. But I love Aussies, but not the brightest matches in the box when it comes to real estate. That's why that's why Aussies is such financial trouble. Credit card debt and housing debt.
I think one of the reasons that people are oblivious to all this is because we've had this 30-year cycle, and we got pretty lucky and we skipped the GFC because of China. And negatively gearing and losing money only works if property prices keep going up. But now it's started to flatten. It sort of bounces back. We're forming that lower high at the moment, I think. But it doesn't work, does it? Negatively gearing doesn't work if we start to roll over or even go sideways.
I don't know. I mean, you guys think it works. I didn't touch it. And I'm not that stupid. But a lot of Aussies are. A lot of Americans are too. They think their house is an asset when they're really losing money every month. Even if you have no debt on your house in America, you still have insurance payments, you still have upkeep, you have electricity. So they all lose money. And these stupid effing Americans think their house is an asset and their car is an asset when they're really liabilities. Yeah. And that's why Rich Dad, Poor Dad is only a book on accounting, income statement, balance sheet, statements of cash flow. But they think it's a story about my rich dad, my poor dad. Yeah. And it's really about accounting or a financial statement.
Yeah. Let's dive into gold and silver, but Bitcoin. So you weren't a fan of Bitcoin. I guess what changed in your mind? Was it just understanding it, or what changed your perspective?
I don't need the money. I just started looking into it because I have a friend, he's the same age as me. He bought $3 million worth of Bitcoin at $1. So he's already a billionaire. He became a bigger billionaire. So I sat down, I talked to him. I just don't need the money. It's like the fun of it. So I sat down with him. He and I were former Marines together. And he says, take a look at this thing. So I started to study it. And I almost bought when it was $20 because everybody kept saying it was going to go up. But thank God I didn't buy it, because when it retraced down, then I'm backing up and buying it again. But I understand now, the halving just took place, so Bitcoin gets harder while the dollar gets softer. The Aussie gets softer too. Yeah. Because you guys have to print. They call the Royal Bank of Australia has to print. And I'm saying again, all central banks are corrupt. The Fed, the U.S. Fed, is owned by the Rothschild family, not America. And Americans don't do that. The other thing that most Americans do not realize, or people don't realize, is the only countries we're at war with don't have central banks. So who is America at war with? North Korea, Afghanistan, Iraq, Iran, Libya. So it's really about a banking system we go to war for. And the average person will never understand that. They just think the banks, that little bank on the street, when really the bank takes place below the street in the shadow banking system, and the shadow banking system is toast. It's collapsing right now because they have to keep lending money. So I know the Commonwealth Bank is borrowing money like crazy from our Fed through a swap line. A swap line means America, the Fed loans Commonwealth Bank, let's say $250 billion or whatever they lend them in US dollars so that they can pay back the debt to America. And so Aussie keeps falling behind on these rolled over swap lines. Yeah. And when I talk to Americans or Aussies about that, they go, "Oh, my house went up value. Oh, the stock market went up. They can only see above the street. They don't see what's going on in the shadow banking system.
Yeah.
So the reason I like gold, silver, and Bitcoin is because I'm more in the shadow banking system. I'm below the surface. And that's where the problems lie today. So the stock market in America is going up, and people's supers are going to, oh, everybody's happy again. But the market underneath, the banking system underneath the street level is a mess.
Yeah, one theory that I've been working on, Robert, with all the, I'm not sure how much you know about the stable coins, but they are also in that shadow system. And as you say, any country or any person that has a smartphone can now download a crypto app and they can get digital US dollars or Bitcoin and avoid that whole banking system, as you say. So I think that's going to take a lot of power away from the Fed and other central banks. Would you agree with all that? And do you sort of, are you understanding that stablecoin thing? It's very similar to Bitcoin, I guess, but it's that shadow digital system that's overtaking banks.
Yeah, you guys are what you do is, I buy most of my gold from the Perth Mint because I can't get gold in America. We're sold out. The price still remains at 1700 US, but the price of gold is higher in Aussie because the exchange rate is dropping. So when I listen to all of this garbage, all I want is to use debt to buy more property. And I don't negative gear, I positive gear. And I get tax breaks for that. And that's what I teach in Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and the cash flow board game, and things like this. So, YouTube is a great place. That's where I listen to, when it comes to Bitcoin, I listen to the Anthony Pompiliano, and he has a guy named Robert Breedlove, and then there's George Gammon. There's a lot of young guys like you who really know what's going on. And so I'd say just go to YouTube and listen to you guys. That's all I'm doing. I don't listen to Warren Buffett because he doesn't like gold and he doesn't like Bitcoin. Well, he's an old guy, but he's got 140 billion in cash. So Ray Dalio doesn't recommend Bitcoin. He recommends gold. And Jim Rickards, who is a partner in another book of mine, he doesn't like Bitcoin, but that's their freedom. They like gold. So old guys like gold and silver, and young guys like Bitcoin. And the more I studied Bitcoin, especially the halving, I understood it, because I'm not buying Bitcoin because I like Bitcoin. I'm buying Bitcoin because I don't trust the U.S. government.
Yeah.
If you trust the government, you trust the Aussie government, you think your central bank's on your side, save Aussie and get screwed.
I don't think our audience trusts the government or the central bank too much, Robert. Paul Tudor Jones is a little bit different. So he's not quite in that old man category, but he's a big fan of Bitcoin. So why do you think someone like Paul likes Bitcoin? As you say, some of the others you just mentioned, they don't like Bitcoin. Sorry, it cut out a little bit there. I was just saying, why do you think Paul Tudor Jones is a fan of Bitcoin and some of his peers, they don't like Bitcoin?
It's just a matter of choice. There's lots of choices. I don't think Bitcoin's a be-all, end-all. It's a store of value. It's not a medium of exchange. But it stores value just because of the way Satoshi, that's his name, set it up, the halving. When I found that out, I went, good, because while you guys are halving, the U.S., the Fed, or the dollar is printing, same as the Aussie. So it's just how the operating system, plus it's non-centralized money.
Yeah.
It's all on your guys' computers. It's not a bunch of old white guys in the Fed making decisions. And it's all crony capitalism. The Fed guys, they only there to take care of themselves. They only take care of their friends, but they fuck everybody else. Yeah. So you want to save money and work for money? Get fucked. Save dollars. I don't like getting fucked.
What do you say to the people that are talking about all this money printing is going to cause inflation versus the other argument that we've got all these retirees and we're going to see deflation like Harry Dent talks about? So what are your thoughts on inflation versus deflation?
I don't give a shit. I don't care. So I'm going to make money anyway. I don't own commercial real estate. I own apartment houses. So every month they've got to pay me their money. Or if they don't pay me, they're thrown out. You see, that's the reason I got out of Aussie. You guys are pretty much socialists. But in Arizona, they're hardcore capitalists. California are a bunch of communists. You can't throw people out. So I got to know the tenancy laws of the state I'm in. Texas I love because, you don't pay your rent, they kick you out. But in New York, you can't kick them out. So I don't invest in New York.
No.
So I'm not into this other games that foolish people play. I just don't get it. And I don't want to get it. I don't want to be like my friends and family who are poor.
I think it's pretty hard to kick people out in Australia. Tenants have a lot of rights these days in Australia.
Yeah, that's why I don't invest there. And your prices are so inflated because of negative gearing and all the Chinese moving to town. Last time I was in Sydney, I thought I was in Hong Kong. I was going, what the hell's going on here? I'm out of here. So
how do you think that relationship is changing with Australia and China and the US as of getting a fair bit of friction there? Australia's kind of like a rock in a hard place.
Oh, they're threatening war, but you're already at war. It's called a currency war. Everybody, your Aussie wants your dollar to get cheaper so you can export more. So your own government is screwing the people who work for money. That's why lesson number 1 in Rich Dad Poor Dad is rich don't work for money, because money, you're getting screwed through your money.
I know you're not a fan of governments or central banks, but recently we've seen governments start to, I guess, print more or spend more themselves. So do you think they're realizing, hey, we can just spend as much as we want. We don't even need that central bank anymore. Do you think that's a dynamic that's changing?
Well, because people don't even know what the central bank does or is. I'll just tell you a quick story. There's an old story came out in 1900. It was called The Wizard of Oz.
Yeah.
And the Wizard of Oz is the truth. The Wizard of Oz, OZ, you know what OZ stands for? Ounces.
Yes.
When you look at gold, it goes 10 OZ. So it's the Wizard of OZ.
Yeah.
And then Dorothy in 1900 had silver slippers on.
Yes.
That was because the dollar, the US dollar, was a silver certificate. Today it's a Federal Reserve note. The yellow brick road was gold. And in one of the lines is that the wizard says to Dorothy, I'm a bad wizard. And she says, and he ran Emerald City. And Emerald City is the Eccles buildings in Washington, D.C. It's where they print fake gold greenbacks. So that's what was called the Emerald City. And so that was in 1900. And the tornado that lifted her out and took her out of Kansas was all the financial turmoil that the people in the Midwest and Kansas were going through. And they're all confused today. So this guy named Baum wrote The Wizard of Oz, and he was warning people about what was happening. But the average person is so effing stupid, they don't see the symbolism inside the story of The Wizard of Oz. It's the same as Monopoly. In Monopoly, the main guy was J.P. Morgan. And that's the game. But they think their only games are a fairy tale. But they don't realize they're being screwed because they went to school. What did you learn about money in school? Nothing. And you're learning by people. Most school teachers are hardcore communists and socialists. They believe in the government taking care of people. Well, some people need to be taken care of, but not everybody. If you can breathe and you can walk, you can work. And money is only created by work done. So when you're paying people not to work, you're going communist or socialist, and it damages money, which is why I like gold, silver, and Bitcoin.
I know at the moment, since the COVID happened, everyone is going one step closer to universal basic income. We're paying everyone not to work, like you just said. So a lot of people are now making more money than when they were at a job. So, how do we undo that situation? And we're starting to see the social unrest that you mentioned because of the inequality. So I guess it's all related. So what are your thoughts on, the universal basic income and this social unrest that's coming?
Just don't participate. I'm just saying buy gold, silver, Bitcoin, because it's coming. It's coming. Why would you debate it? Because most school teachers are hardcore communists. They believe in central controlled government. Or they're socialists, or they're like Robin Hood, They want to take from the rich and give to the poor. Now, again, 20% of the people are so needy, they need to be taken care of, but 80% can work. And I love Aussie and your country and all that, but you're basically a hardcore socialist country. That's why I don't invest there. I visit, but I don't invest. I did that once, that's enough. So gold, silver, Bitcoin, gold and silver are God's money, and Bitcoin is people's money. It's decentralized money. So all you guys who are younger guys who are into Bitcoin or crypto, whatever you guys are into, I'd study it further, but I wouldn't just negate gold and silver because you like Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is not really a unit of exchange yet.
Yeah.
It's a store of value. It's a unit of account, but it's not a store. It's not exchangeable yet.
Mm. We're big advocates of gold and silver on the channel as well. One thing I do get a lot of questions about at the moment is silver's underperformance and that silver ratio. So are people saying we're going into a recession or depression, we're not going to use a lot of silver? Do you think that the sort of the monetary side of silver makes a big comeback and that ratio comes back?
Well, the more guys like Tesla and those guys go to batteries, and the more there's solar panels on roofs. So the more they go eco, they're going to go more silver, because silver is used in medicine, is used in purification. So it's really an industrial metal as well as a monetary metal. So again, remember the Wizard of Oz, the original Dorothy wore silver slippers. And the original US dollar was a silver certificate until they took it off that standard. It became a Federal Reserve note, became fake money. And also what happened is up until 1964, all US coins were real silver. And then in 64, they started developing that copper tinge. It was called debase their money. So they took the silver out of money. So those coins are more valuable today. So they've gone up in value, but the real US coins went down in value. And that's called Gresham's Law. Gresham's Law states when bad money comes into circulation, real money goes into hiding. So that's why I speak out about gold, silver, and Bitcoin, because it's what is a central bank doing? What are your school teachers teaching your kids? And do you trust your government? I don't. I don't trust my government. This COVID corona crisis, some people think it's real. I think it's a smokescreen for something else.
Yeah,
because the number of deaths don't match the hype.
I definitely think it's being used as a cover for what is going on. They're going to try and blame it. But I'm actually, because I'm in the healthcare industry, I do believe that it's something that we need to take seriously until we have at least a cure of some sort, because we can't let it get out of control like we did in New York. We can't be living like that. But next thing I want to talk about was commercial property. So working from home. You touched on this already.
Something else, they talk about. Let me talk to you about what New York is, I think, the number 3 worst state in America, worst city too. And they say it's because they're crowded and all this. Or Tokyo and New York are in the same northern latitude. So Tokyo has 1/1000% of deaths. New York has more deaths. And the reason is because the people are poor. They have poor health care, poor health. They're not that bright. They're laborers. They're not smart people. Whereas the Japanese, their culture is they're very clean. I'm Japanese, but I'm not touting it because of that. But they take off their shoes when they enter the house. They take a bath before they take a bath. They do a lot of things, and they live in more crowded conditions than New Yorkers do. And they're old. Japan is the oldest population in America. I'm old. I'm 73 years old. I've had pneumonia 3 times, but I've never had COVID. Do you know? Yeah. I get checked every other week. I run this test on myself. I'm fine. So it's a lot of smoke. And I think they did it because in September 2019, the shadow banking market collapsed. And interest rates in the shadow banking system went up to 10%, whereas interest rates on the street above ground went down and the stock market went up. So the Americans were really happy. Then December, I think to cover up the 2019 September crash of the shadow banking system, the coronavirus comes out, and they have to make it like it was some big deal, and it's serious, but not as a big a deal as they say it is. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I definitely think it's been used to cover up the situation that was probably going to happen already. So I think we do agree on that. But yeah, commercial.
The worst thing is, all viruses come in waves. So the 1918 virus hit again in the fall, and that's when the most deaths occurred. So if that happens, the U.S. economy will collapse, and you're going to wish you had bought gold, silver, and Bitcoin.
And move to Tasmania, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, commercial real estate. So everyone's going to these big cities, paying overhyped rents, particularly in, say, Sydney and New York, these big cities. Do you think people are going to be working from home more, and commercial real estate is going to come down a fair bit in value?
I think so. I don't own real commercial. I own residential. And the one piece of commercial I do own, it's a hotel I wish I didn't own. But I caught it. I got caught in another transaction. But thank God I'm not at risk for it. The other commercial real estate I have is an old folks home. So that's the big boom business, because the old guys like me, I'm going to have the penthouse in that building.
Yeah.
So it's not real estate. It's what type of real estate and all this. I wouldn't want to own a shopping center. I wouldn't want to go. I wouldn't want to be at the QVC in Sydney. I wouldn't want to be in Jones right now.
Have you heard the statistic that there's more adult diapers than baby diapers in the world for the first time ever?
Yeah.
Retirement.
That's in Japan.
Yeah.
So that's why, if you trust your government, save Aussie, work for Aussie, pretend there's job security, go work for David Jones.
I think they've just gone under today, or they're closing down 500 stores. David Jones. Yeah.
They are?
Yeah.
That's too bad.
Yeah.
Like I said, I love Aussie, but every time I went there, I said, "You negative gear."
Maybe it's all coming home. Yeah. Well, Robert, that's all the talking points I had. Do you have any other, take-home messages or life lessons for people?
Yeah, the biggest thing I think is, with Bitcoin came out in 2009, the thing I always say is the cell phone came out in 2007. And that iPhone is the most powerful tool ever created for an entrepreneur. So look at what we're doing right now, we could be doing on iPhone. So Aussie is not far away anymore. Aussie is one phone call away. Yeah. So I always say to my Aussie friends, I can sit on Bondi Beach, have a long black, and be selling to the world. But if you think like an employee, it's the worst time. But you think like an entrepreneur, it's a great time. And the cell phone is the best thing you got today. Look at how many people are on YouTube and all this stuff. So it's a matter of how you look at the world. And I see the world it's bad, but there's also more opportunity. But I think you have to be creative. That's what Einstein said, creativity is more important than knowledge. And too many people went to school to have knowledge and this college degree, but it's not worth anything. A pawn shop will give you nothing for your college degree. Nothing. Yeah. But they'll give you money for your gold, silver, and Bitcoin. Think of that.
I think that's a great place to finish. I really appreciate your time, Robert. I'll put the links to follow Robert down below and his books and all that, guys. So hope you've enjoyed that, and thanks for joining us today, Robert.
Thank you. Aussie is the best place on earth. You're lucky to live there.
We are.
Thank you.
Cool. Thanks, guys.